Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Strategy Show. First look, well, second look, but first look at the Sunday slate. Yesterday, Ben Ross and myself broke everything down for Saturday. Feel free to venture back and check that one out as well, because you got 3 Saturday games. But now we're talking Sunday, 10-game slate. Very interesting one, to say the least. I'm Dave Loughran, Loughran_D on Twitter, LOUGHY_D, joined by Neil Orfield at PlayerQDFS, doing what we do every single Wednesday of the season. A little bit different today, man, but we got to take this approach. It's a weird schedule.
Yeah, we're doing the first look. I don't want to call it the second look, because this is my first time ever doing a first look show. So this is the first look at the Sunday slate. Definitely very different. The content is a little bit weird this week. This is my only Sunday show of the week. We're not doing On the Contrary this week. And then on Saturday, I'll be doing the Saturday deeper dive instead of Saturday strategy show. So it'll be fun. This is my only time to talk about this Sunday slate. Looking forward to it. Yeah,
man. It's going to be, are you doing Saturday deeper dive?
Saturday deeper dive with Greg. Yep. So we're converting usually the Saturday strategy show with me and Greg. We've just converted that to the Saturday deeper dive instead.
Did they put me on this? I hope not.
Okay.
No, but everybody's in good hands. It's you and Greg, and then Eric and Matt Savoca. That should be solid.
Yeah.
Should be solid.
Got some good shows. Just a 3-gamer. It'll be fun.
And then next week you got Christmas. Christmas Day falls on a Sunday.
Yep.
So main slate. I kind of like when they do this. Main slate is Saturday, and then Sunday's got a couple of games as well. So we have a couple really fun weeks of football coming up. Enjoy these times, fellas. You get some cold weather football, maybe some bad inclement weather. Some windy game. It makes for a lot of fun. Can also be a little bit more difficult at times, but we're here to break all of it down. So as always, very happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below if you're listening after the fact. We try and read and respond to all of them. It helps us a lot. Even if you're just commenting in chat, all of our best friends out there in chat commenting, everything helps us. Plus, we like to see what you have to say. And if you're listening in podcast form, leave a rating, a review, subscribe to the channel, all that great stuff. And tell your friends about the strategy show over here at Stokastic. All right, man. So we got 10 games. Interesting to say the least, because there are a couple pricing tiers that are just loaded and some that are pretty barren. At the top of quarterback, you've got, and we'll go position by position here. At the top of no weekend review this week. Ben and I covered that yesterday. We don't need to break that down twice. I think I did add that to the topics, Mike. That's my fault. Just move on. Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. One of them in Mahomes is a 14-point favorite this week. The other one in Hurts against both quarterbacks facing far inferior defenses. Jalen Hurts has just been on a torrid pace. Like this guy is on an absolute mission right now. 30+ fantasy points in 3 straight games. Now he's a 9-point road favorite against a Chicago team that cannot stop anyone right now. Arguably, they're the worst defense in the league over the last month of football.
I mean, arguably them or maybe my Vikings. The NFC North just in shambles right now. Yeah, it's a great matchup against the Bears. Love Jalen Hurts this week. Pretty good week to have a lot of Jalen Hurts in best ball. Unfortunately, everybody else also has a lot of Jalen Hurts in best ball because he's just been crushing it all year. I think they're going to eat up this Chicago secondary. It's just a matter of, is he going to do it on the ground? Is he going to do it through the air? It feels like he doesn't really need to be throwing the ball. He can just probably rush, 10 yards an attempt against this Bears defense and just run it the whole game. But so it's a matter of, do we double stack Jalen Hurts? I think I'm inclined to single stack. But yeah, great matchup. I'm going to be playing some Hurts this weekend.
Keith Woodford. Neil, what does the Q stand for? Anon, right?
Yeah, that's I'm trying to distance myself from the QAnon tag here, Laffy. That's not being helpful. So it was. I guess I'll do the long story short. I at one point thought I was going to start my own site several years ago. Created a website called playerq.com. I actually created several. Somebody almost bought the website domain name from me for $5,000. Deal fell through at the last second, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to turn this around. I'm going to use that as my site name. And then, of course, I never did, but I held on to the PlayerQ handle.
Okay.
Player
what did
questions.
You ever do with the
for questions, like player questions? If you have questions about
for sure. What did you do with the domain undergroundpizzashopdungeon.com?
That's funny. It's still very active. We have a niche following.
I'm just kidding. I'm done. That was a big one. That was when QAnon first got underway, man. It was, I think, Comet Pizza. Almost. I can't remember. I think it was Comet Pizza.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Fun stuff. All right. Let's keep going here, though. Do you prefer Hurts or Mahomes?
Hurts or Mahomes? That's a really interesting question. I'm going to look at the top stacks tool, because that is probably our best indicator of who you'd want to. Hang on one second. Just realizing that I'm not in the right place here. So we have, all right, Mahomes. My God. It's got to be Mahomes. Just looking at, we've got 9.5% projected ownership on Patrick Mahomes, 22.3% chance of being the top stack, and even a 13.6% chance of being the top value stack. That's pretty surprising to me with Mahomes. Maybe this is an indicator that one of these cheaper receivers is going to finally do something this week. I guess we'll wait and see. But in the top stack tool, Hurts doesn't look quite as good. 6.7% projected ownership, 9.7% chance of being the top stack. So I guess I've got to go with Mahomes. I feel pretty confident in Hurts though too. It's closer than the top stacks tool would probably indicate for me. But I got to go with Mahomes against this terrible Texans defense. My only concern there is the Texans defense is so bad that oftentimes teams aren't throwing on them all that much throughout the game. So I don't think they're among the league leaders in terms of like passing yards given up or passing touchdowns, that kind of stuff, just because teams don't need to against the Texans pass the ball throughout the game. So I'm going to go with Mahomes, but it's close for me. How about you?
I'm leaning Hurts here only because of what you just said. When it comes to Jalen Hurts, it's like, yes, Chicago's bad against the run and against the pass, but if Hurts racks up that extra 60 rushing yards, it can make a big, big difference. Maybe that's not accounted for as much in the top stack tool either, the fact that this guy can really run. But it's tough to say too. Like if Dallas Goedert is back, you're talking about some really good weapons. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. is the passing volume going to be that much more for Mahomes in this game? I mean, Isaiah Pacheco ran the ball 22 times in that game against the Rams. Sure, the Rams did shut them down inside the 10 a few times, but pretty concentrated offense for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's really just a matter of, like, can the Eagles do what they did against Tennessee and just get up really early, or what they did against Pittsburgh and a bunch of these teams and just air it out to Devontae? And hell, they did that last week against the Giants too. I think Jalen Hurts just in a spot like this from a stacking standpoint, I'm a little bit more comfortable there because they don't throw to as many players. I keep going back to this. I know it's probably annoying everyone, but Kadarius Toney's expected back. Then you got Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who once in a while gets involved. You have Juju Smith-Schuster. You have a very expensive Travis Kelce. You have Jerick McKinnon now, who's
Justin
ripping
Watson.
Yeah, you have Watson.
Sky Moore.
Right. And if you really want to go, you're talking like, hey, maybe Noah Gray has 3 targets.
Yep.
I think it's a little bit more concentrated. If you're accounting for volume, maybe Mahomes throws less than he normally does as a 2-touchdown dog.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you. And I should say this about the top stacks tool. So I'm just reading what it says. Probability at quarterback and receiver combo will be the highest scoring of the week, averaging the probabilities for top scoring with 1 receiver and 2 receivers together. So maybe the Eagles get a little bit of a negative bump here because it's unlikely that Jalen Hurts is going to bring along 2 receivers with him. So like the Chiefs may look better in the top stack tool because it's more likely with Mahomes that you're going to get there with a double stack as opposed to Jalen Hurts. So maybe there is still some, the Eagles will look even better if you just single stack Jalen Hurts as opposed to double stacking him, along with, the point you just made about the number of targets that Mahomes has. I mean, it can be sure the Chiefs have a 22.3% chance of being the top stack, but who are you stacking with Mahomes outside of Kelce is a bigger question than it is for the Eagles, where you just know I'm going to AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. It's much simpler. So I hear you. It's a very close call for me, to be honest.
And as good as Kelce is, he is damn expensive. He's he's more than $3,000 more expensive than the next closest tight end this week, which is crazy. And he's amazing, but you've even seen him, you've even seen him kind of take of course, not a backseat role at all, but with the ball being spread around so much, we've seen a decent amount of games recently where Kelce's just, especially by salary standards, been pedestrian at best. So it's weird. I tell you what, though, I do like Justin Herbert this week. Mike Williams is back. He looked perfectly fine. No worse for wear coming back from that ankle injury. Keenan Allen's at full strength. Austin Eckler, Palmer has looked good. Like, they got weapons in this offense. And now they're facing a Titans team that is just completely imploded. They've allowed 386 and 368 passing yards over the last 2 games. Granted, Hurts would have cleared 400 easily if he wasn't sitting in the fourth quarter. And then Trevor Lawrence just went on to have his best career game against this Titans team in Tennessee last week. With all of these healthy weapons at home for Justin Herbert, and look, far be it for me to say that the Chargers are ever a lock, because they'll always find ways to disappoint. But, dude, almost 400 passing yards in back-to-back games for a Titans team that is on the brink right now, despite being in a division that they should be running away with. Herbert at 7,200, very interesting to me this week.
Yeah, and the Titans, very much a pass funnel defense, 28th against the pass, first against the rush in terms of DVOA per Football Outsiders. The Chargers have a 25 implied team total, which I believe is the 4th on the slate. So they're, near the top. And of course, as we know, they have the ability to really go off. As you said, tons of weapons for the Chargers. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Gerald Everett, Josh Palmer, and you can even throw Austin Eckler in there. Even though the Titans are good against the run, I mean, Austin Eckler also very involved in the passing game. So a lot of stacking options there, are a lot of good stacking options there. So fairly condensed, maybe not quite as condensed as the Eagles in terms of passing options, but still fairly condensed. And yeah, it's a great spot for the Chargers for Justin Herbert in the top stacks tool. What do we have his projected ownership at? We've got Herbert at 10.5% projected ownership, 12.9% chance to be in the top stack. So it looks great in the top stacks tool, and plenty of options to go there. And I would include Austin Eckler in that potential stack as well, just because he is so involved in the passing game. Even if the Titans are great against the run, that doesn't scare me off of Eckler, because he can do it, through the air as well.
Are there any other mid-range guys, talking like Herbert down to, I don't know. Herbert down to say Trevor Lawrence, who's interesting at 6K. Anybody else in there stand out to you? Like Fields down the Lawrence, I should say. Fields is in that 7,400 range. Burrow against the Tampa Bay team that is falling apart. They stink. They stink. Okay. They stink right now. Dak against Jacksonville. Interesting. There's a couple spots there I like, but I think a bunch that I'm fading as well.
Yeah, so I think I have to kind of like Justin Fields at really low ownership. The Eagles defense, very good against the pass, but really bad against the run as well. And that, Justin Fields is the rare quarterback where that's maybe helpful to him. Maybe he just runs the ball more. I think that it's very likely that Justin Fields gets that 100-yard bonus on the ground. Very likely doesn't mean like a 90% chance, but I don't know, is it close to 50% that Justin Fields gets that 100-yard rushing bonus if he plays a full game against the Eagles defense? I think it's getting up there. We've got him at just 2.5% ownership. He does look bad in the top stack tool. As I said, 2.5% ownership, 1.5% chance to be in the top stack, 2.1% chance to be in the top value stack. Still, I don't think I would run him out there naked. And in general, I am disinclined to run quarterbacks out there naked just because it just makes it more of a long shot if you can't correlate your quarterback with anybody. So I prefer to play quarterbacks when you can correlate them. But I think, you just single stack him with a Cole Kmet maybe, or possibly Chase Claypool. It has not worked out yet if you've been trying him with Chase Claypool, but I am still inclined to play some Justin Fields at 2.5% ownership. Maybe you could consider even running him out there naked. Maybe this is the rare opportunity just because, man, I think that he could run all over this Eagles defense at really low ownership. So hard not to have a little bit of interest there in Justin Fields. As far as other quarterbacks that I have interest in, I think I might go to some Derek Carr against, the Patriots. It's a tough spot. Great defense, but Derek Carr coming in at 4.6% ownership, 5.9% chance of being the top stack. Obviously, you're going to Devonta Adams there. I believe both Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller have at least a shot to play this weekend, which would really bolster that offense for Vegas. I'll have to double check if that's true, but I think that's the case. Pretty interesting there. Mike White, 3.6% projected ownership. Mike White going up against Detroit, and he's got weapons. They had a tough matchup last week. Now they have one of the best matchups in the league against this Detroit defense. 3.6% ownership, only a 3.3% chance of being the top stack, but a 4.8% chance of being the top value stack. And Garrett Wilson's going to look great in the tools already. You can also get a little bit contrarian going to guys like Elijah Moore, particularly if Corey Davis is out. That just boosts Elijah Moore that much more. Maybe even throw in a Zonovan Knight or the running game. Pretty interesting there in that stack as well. Mike White has a history of targeting running back, so I think that's the spot you can go. Do you think you have any interest in Mike White against this Detroit defense?
If he plays, yeah, I do.
Oh, that's right. Mike White is questionable.
He definitely could still play, but I think I know he was taken to the hospital after the game, so
yeah,
for precautionary reasons. Robert Saleh said he's day-to-day right now. So in the event that he's played, yeah, I do. Because I like Garrett Wilson. I like Tyler Conklin at a sub 4K price point. Elijah Moore is interesting coming off a double-digit target game. Yeah, I think. And you got Detroit too that, has had so much success in the Dome. Granted, they did win 2 games on the road. One of them, honestly, was just blame that on Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay offense, because I'm pretty sure Detroit still managed only 15 points in that game. The other one though, against, was it Chicago or New York, or did they win both of those on the road? Point being, it's going to be like 34 degrees here outside of the Dome. This could be interesting. Also, I know Detroit's not exactly warm, so these guys aren't living in a tropical climate. But they have had some issues outside of the Dome. Yeah, they beat Chicago and New York. So they're definitely looking better. I won't take anything away from them. But I think that, look, Jets are 1-point favorites. I think Jets squeak a win out in this game, even though Detroit's been riding high. My guess is a ton of bets are going to come in on the Lions. Not sure how much of the money. But Mike White, just given how inexpensive this stack is against a Detroit team that has been an over machine this year, makes plenty of sense to me. Of course, it's a 44-point total. So This is not your typical Detroit Lions game that we've seen in recent weeks. But yeah, I like him. because outside of that, there's not much there. I like Lawrence against Dallas.
Yep.
Plenty at 6K. Herbert, White, and then Hurts and Mahomes. For me, that's it. Like, I totally understand the low ownership Fields play. My only issue with that is, like, Eagles have the second best secondary in the league, according to Football Outsiders DVOA. Do they just go into this game and like, all right, don't let Justin Fields run and let him throw to Chase Claypool and Cole Kmet, and we'll do the rest of the work? Because, dude, this team has 49 sacks already this year. It's insane. They're generating a ton of pressure recently. They're getting to the quarterback, and they've also shored up that run defense to the point where over the last several weeks they've allowed 22. Last week they allowed, God, what was it? Like 22 yards to Barkley. Henry was stuffed. The thing there, though, is it's not that the run defense is elite. It's the same thing I've been saying for a while. If they get up early in games, teams have to abandon that. Yep. They can't just keep running down up the middle with Henry or Saquon Barkley when you're down by 21 points in the first quarter. Fields can run, though. Fields is different than like running it to David Montgomery a bunch. So I do understand it, but I would think coming into this game, they go, hey, there's nothing else on this offense. Neutralize Justin Fields if you can, and we should be okay. It'll be interesting to say the least, because we haven't seen them face a real good rushing quarterback yet.
Yeah, it's easier said than done to stop Justin Fields.
But it's also easier than it would be if he had any weapons to speak of in this offense.
Yeah, that is very true. It'll be interesting. I mean, maybe that makes the pass catching options look a little bit better if they just, put all of their eggs in the stop Fields rushing basket. Makes it a little bit easier for those pass catchers. I mean, again, it's a relatively low probability play, but at 2.5% ownership, I think that I kind of have to take some shots there, because I think that, Fields has that, 30 to 35 fantasy point upside in his bag of tricks. And it's possible that none of these other quarterbacks get there. Because as you said, we don't have that many great options this week. There's, just a few guys that he's going to need to beat. And I think that, he's got that, certainly the upside to do so. Just a couple others I'll throw out there. Dak Prescott looks great against this Jacksonville defense. It's not a great defense. Dak coming in at 7.2% ownership. We've got a slight negative leverage there. 6.9% chance of being the top stack, 6.7% chance of being the top value stack. But, Dak is always going to look great with CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, maybe Dalton Schultz or Noah Brown. Pretty interesting stack there. And then Andy Dalton against Atlanta. I mean, 4.3% projected ownership, 6% chance to be in the top value stack. It's just such a great spot. I don't love playing Andy Dalton. And then there's some risk of Taysom Hill, getting some of that touchdown equity instead of Andy Dalton. So not a very high confidence play, but sort of interesting against, really bad Atlanta defense. So I'd throw that one in there as well. I think that largely covers the quarterbacks that I think we need to talk about.
Let's talk about running backs then.
Yeah.
We got some really good ones this week. We also have an amazing opportunity to sign up at Prize Picks. I can't imagine there's anybody left that can sign up at Prize Picks, say it's available in their state, and hasn't done so yet using this promo, because you're getting $100 up to $100 first match deposit bonus. And you're getting an entire month of Stokastic Plus Platinum free. Like, you guys are here for DFS content, right? You hear us talk about the top stack tool, the boom bust tool, the ownership projections, the player projections, the lineup generator, all of that stuff. It's yours for you deposit $10 or whatever. Outside of that, it's $120 every tool, not just for football either. All of our sports, basketball, hockey, MMA, NASCAR, PGA, NFL, soccer, tennis. Like, if they have contests out there, we have projections, we have ownership for them, we have top stacks, we have everything. And Prize Picks, you sign up using the link in the description or the one that Mike just threw in the chat, and you're getting all of our tools for free for the entire month. And you're getting into the premium Discord, great community, and your $100 first match deposit bonus at Prize Picks. Fortunately for you guys, this isn't just one of those things where you're like, all right, I'll put a little bit of money in there. And I'll play it, and when it's gone, I'm done because this site sucks. Now, Prize Picks is blowing up right now, especially for those of you in non-legal betting states, which is where it's mostly available. It's awesome. You're just building lineups with props, and if you hit all 5, you 10x. I think you can go 6 now as well with a massive multiplier there. And unlike a traditional book with their parlays, where they're like, if you hit 4 or 5, you make nothing back. Prize Picks, you hit 4 or 5, you still 2x. You hit 3 or 5, you still make money back. So you're sustaining a bankroll. You're giving yourselves chances to make big money and getting up to $100 first match deposit bonus, free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, and you can mix all the sports you want in any lineup you want over at Prize Picks. Check it out. You guys will love this if it's available in your state. I can promise you that. Links in the description. Link is in the chat as well. And
Let me just add. I mean, so Prize Picks I've seen promoted all over the place. Everybody's promoted. It's just, as you said, taking off right now. Really fun, different way to play, sort of DFS, sort of sports betting, kind of a hybrid there. But what we have that other people don't have is all of these Stokastic tools when you sign up. And what I'm excited about right now in particular is the lineup generator. We just released swappability in the lineup generator. So it generates lineups for you, and you can actually swap out players if there are players that you don't like in there. So I've started playing around with that. I started hand building a few more lineups, and I build them, starting with the lineup generator and making some tweaks here or there. So that's a pretty cool addition to the lineup generator tool.
Yeah, it's an awesome addition. It's a great feature. It's a brand new tool, and we continue to innovate every single week with that. So, yeah, we'd love to see you over at Prize Picks, but more than anything, take advantage of that free month that we'd love to see you over at Stokastic as well. All right, let's talk about running backs here. At the top, you've got no real, I wouldn't say you have any like legitimate smash spots, because you have Eckler, where you would assume that if he gets it done, it's through the air, almost certainly. Like, I have a very tough time believing he's going to do it on the ground. Even last week, Travis Etienne, and this was my biggest concern with this guy, doesn't catch passes. Hey, Doug Peterson didn't draft Travis Etienne, okay? He didn't draft him, and he doesn't intend on using him like they did, like Urban Meyer did. So that's what you get. I'm not saying that'll never happen, but I don't think he had a single reception or target. And he's your decimal back now. My point is, though, like, if Eckler gets it done at this price point, my assumption is he's going to have to do it through the air. That worries me a little bit, completely honest. Josh Jacobs against New England. Okay, interesting. Derrick Henry against the Chargers. Those are your 3 guys above 8K. I think there's good things about all of them, but I don't think any of them are in just like ultimate smash spots where I go, I want to get those guys in every lineup possible.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, just looking at the matchup for starting with Josh Jacobs going against the Patriots defense, they're 10th in terms of rush DVOA, just not a great spot. Sometimes I just have to defer to the boom bust tool, and the boom bust tool tells me Josh Jacobs coming in at 15% projected ownership, 28% chance of being optimal. So I am not inclined, when I look at the matchup and I see the price tag on Josh Jacobs, it looks gross to me. It's not a play that I want to make, but if he's coming in at 15% projected ownership with a 28% chance of being optimal, that's pretty nice. That does interest me just based on what we're seeing in our simulations. He looks like the best of the group to me. Derrick Henry coming in at 23% projected ownership, 20% chance of being the top stacked. Much better spot against the Chargers defense. They are 25th in terms of rush DVOA. The Titans have a 22 implied team total, whereas the Raiders are right there, 21.75. But the Titans, clearly, they're more likely to score through on the ground as opposed to through the air. Whereas the Chargers, the Raiders have similar implied team total, but a lot of their points, a lot of their yards are going to come through the air through Devontae Adams and their other pass catching options. So yeah, definitely. I think, our tools tell me that Josh Jacobs has the best spot, and I generally defer to the tools. But I also think, I have some interest in Derrick Henry against this Chargers defense. It's just not a great defense against the run. They like feeding Derrick Henry the rock anyway. So he is fairly interesting to me. Let me try to remember who the other, Austin Eckler being the other one. Yeah, Austin Eckler, it's really tough for me. I think I'd be more inclined to play him in stacks with Justin Herbert. I think it's a weird spot where I'm less inclined to play Austin Eckler unless he is in a stack, just because the price is high. The matchup is bad for running the ball. I don't think it's likely that he, puts up 100 yards on the ground, but he could still get there just through the air, like through volume from Justin Herbert. So I think that if I play Austin Eckler, I'm more likely to do so in stacks. A little bit disinclined to play him by himself.
Yeah, Swoop. Venmo or PayPal should work for Prize Picks. It should. Except now our government has found a new way to bend us over, Neil, and tax people on anything over $600.
I saw a reference to that. I did not actually check out what that.
Look into it.
Okay.
Look into it. Like if you were
probably going to affect me,
dude. If you sold a couch, like old furniture or something, and you sold it for more than 600, but you took a loss on it, it's your responsibility to go and like find the receipt of a couch. Maybe you bought it 15 years ago to go back and prove that you didn't make a profit. It's absurd, man. It fires me up. And you got like single moms out there selling knickknacks or some shit. And they're like, no, give us your money. Bullshit.
And it's cumulative, right? So this is something that I read.
Yeah, it's not a single transaction.
So like people are,
no,
it's a little bit tough.
It's bullshit. Yeah, it is. It's so stupid. But hey, they're looking out for us, right? All right. No, it isn't, Swoop. Let's talk about some of these mid-range guys. I will go right back to Miles Sanders here at 6,500. Right back to him. Anytime you get anytime you're facing a team like Chicago, which is similar to New York, right? In the sense that, like, yes, they have Fields, but they don't have a potent offense. Like as good as Chicago has looked and Fields has looked, it seems somewhat anomalous to think that you're going to keep ripping off, 30-point games and stuff without legitimate pass catchers and without a great run game outside of Fields. Kind of one-dimensional there. Point is that, like, you could see the Eagles go up early in this. Even if they don't, Miles Sanders probably gets another 17, 18, 19 carries. He also was targeted 40 yards downfield on a wheel route that he had, and his foot was out of bounds. I'll go right back to Sanders, but he's only one of a few, a number of mid-range guys that I think are really interesting this week. I might live around this range again and even below 6K as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of the running backs in that game are pretty interesting, Miles Sanders and David Montgomery. As you said, Miles Sanders, it's a great spot against Chicago. I was saying that there's a good chance that they're not going to do much of it through the air because they probably won't need to. And that also benefits David Montgomery. Clearly, he's just 6,300 against an Eagles defense that much better against the pass than against the run. So Chicago would be smart to keep the ball on the ground. David Montgomery, 11.1% projected ownership, 12.5% chance of being optimal. And then Miles Sanders, I have to love it. 10.6%, 10.6% projected ownership for Miles Sanders, 8.8% chance of being optimal. So slight negative leverage, but I'm with you. I think that he's probably going to get pretty high volume against the Bears. And 6,500, the price is right. It's a great matchup. Hard not to have some interest in Miles Sanders here.
If Stevenson plays, and I don't know if he will, I'll have plenty of Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah, I mean, Stevenson, it's hard. I'm currently under the impression that I think it's unlikely. I think it's he's closer to doubtful than questionable, but I guess we don't really know him. He did come back into the game after he hurt himself, so maybe that's a good sign. But the fact that he wasn't able to keep playing after he tried to, really hard to know what to do with that situation. But yeah, it's at 7,000. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, hard not to like in this matchup with the Raiders. Not a great defense. We do have him projected for 22.3% projected ownership, 17% chance of being optimal. So a little bit of negative leverage there, but assuming that Stevenson is a full go, and all the reports are he's totally fine against the Raiders defense that is 18th against the rush and 32nd against the pass. That's a great spot for Stevenson. So yeah, I would have some interest there as well.
I mean, he leads the team in target share.
Yeah.
If Jacoby, that's the thing, right? Like, if you walk into another situation where he plays, but Damian Harris is out and Jacoby Myers is out, I'm all for it. I tell you though, I think Pollard's getting a little bit expensive, and I know I've kind of been alluding to this lately. And last week he had another solid game, but he only had 14 touches. I have a tough time ignoring the fact, I'm a broken record, but like Zeke's coming off back-to-back 20 touch games or 20 look games. He had 15 attempts and 5 targets on Sunday, 17 attempts and 3 targets the week prior to that. Yes, Pollard's better. We've defined, like, that's definitive, right? We've already established that. But Ezekiel Elliott is still getting Like you're paying 7,100 for Pollard because he's dynamic and he's explosive, but paying 7K plus for a guy that might have, 14, 15 touches again, and the other guy in the backfield might have 20. That to me is slightly worrisome.
Yeah, I think so. Last week was an example of we were very much on the Ezekiel Elliott train, and part of it was because Tony Pollard was going to be chalk, and then it looked awful for us through about 3 quarters. It looked like the smart play. Ezekiel Elliott had more touches, was cheaper, and had like next to zero ownership. And Tony Pollard was, more expensive, had fewer catches, and had all of the ownership. So it looked like Zeke was the sharp play, but Pollard scores 2 touchdowns right away. By the end of the game, though, Pollard kind of fell off, didn't really do much of anything in the second half. Zeke scores a last-minute touchdown, so it didn't end up as bad as it looked at one point. But again, going back to it, Zeke was a smarter play last week. He was lower owned, he was cheaper, and he got more opportunities. And that will probably be the case again this week. I mean, maybe not more opportunities, but they're likely to have about the same number of opportunities in this game. Pollard is 900 more expensive. And again, we've got Pollard at 14% projected ownership, Zeke at 8% projected ownership. However, this week, I think I'd rather play neither of them. So last week, it was like, I think that Zeke is a better play. I want to go to Zeke. Here, it actually looks like we have some negative leverage on both of them, which again, I'm not saying that Pollard or Zeke are out of play here. They're just not among my favorite plays on the week. We've got Pollard coming in at 14% ownership, 7% chance to be an optimal. So just to have some negative leverage there. And then, but this week we also have Zeke at negative leverage, 8.2% projected ownership, 4.5% chance to be an optimal. So I think with all of these other running backs in the $6,000 to $7,000 range, who I just prefer, I don't think that I'm likely to get much of these Cowboys this weekend against the Jags. The Jags are, it's a pretty good defense to face, 16th against the rush. So I guess pretty middling against the rush, but then 30th against the pass, which I guess favors Pollard a little bit more than Zeke. The Cowboys do have a 26 implied team total. So I get it. There are reasons to go there. But just all these other running backs in that range kind of interest me a little bit more. So I don't see myself really going that much to these Dallas running backs. Another name that I going to pull out, Alvin Kamara. Pretty interesting against this Falcons defense, one of the worst defenses in the league. Kamara is just 6,800, coming in 11% projected ownership. I have a lot of interest in Alvin Kamara. We've got him optimal 13.2% of the time. Can you talk me off of Alvin Kamara, or are you going to be going there as well?
I'll ask you a question.
Yeah.
How many games has he scored a touchdown this year?
Oh God, I'm not even going to look it up. 2.
1.
Yeah.
He has 1. Now he had 3 touchdowns in that game. It was a great spot, and I loved him that week. So once in a while we get lucky here against Las Vegas. He has 1 touchdown in 11 games 1 game where he's found the end zone in 11 games. Now, look, you could argue that means things are about to turn around for him. He does have some forces working against him, like Taysom Hill and such, but I don't dislike Alvin Kamara, but man, it has been really tough to be confident in him lately. Like the offense isn't good.
Yeah.
The fact that he has scored in 1 game, I don't want to just act like, oh, you can't play him because of that. I'm not saying that. That 1 game he had 3 touchdowns, and if you didn't have him, you lost. But dude, it's crazy. A guy that was just had an absolute nose for the end zone every other season has gone scoreless in 10 of 11 games. My God, it seems almost impossible for that to be the case. And now Mark Ingram's healthy as well. So what the hell are we going to do there?
Yeah, so I will add it looks a lot worse for just looking through Kamara's game logs. He has been so much less involved recently than
I'm sorry, Ingram's out. My fault.
Okay.
Ingram's out.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was.
Sorry, go ahead.
But so just looking at the beginning of the year, we saw games where Kamara's getting 15 rushes, 7 targets, 23 rushes, 6 targets, 19 rushes, 9 targets, et cetera, et cetera. The most recent game log, just looking, starting from last week and going, backwards from there, 12 rushes and 3 targets in the last game, 7 rushes and 7 targets in the game before that, 12 rushes, 5 targets the game before that, 8 rushes, 4 targets the game before that, 9 and 4. So it's just the past 5 games for Kamara, he has just not been all that involved in the offense. But I don't think that this is a trend that's going to continue. I can't imagine that they're really going to not use Alvin Kamara, who is pretty clearly, I think, their best or second best, one of their top 2 talented skill position players. I can't imagine that they're going to keep this up. And I know that it's 5 games in a row, but I'm willing to gamble that going against Atlanta, against a bad defense, that he's going to get more looks than, the 15 or so that he's been getting recently. And it's, I have no real reason to believe that other than that's what they should do. They should be using Alvin Kamara more. Now he's got this great matchup. And of course, even if he does get 15 total opportunities in this game, he can still pay it off against a bad defense like Atlanta. So I'm sort of making a gamble that he's going to get more carries or more looks than he has been getting recently against this defense. And then, could work out even if that is not the case. But in general, I think that it's more likely that his looks do come up a little bit, especially if, we saw in that one game where he had 3 touchdowns, that was his highest output. That was 6 games ago, 18 rushes and 10 targets. Well, he scores 3 touchdowns in that game. So it might be a case of he's doing well. Let's keep giving him the ball. And this is an equally enticing matchup. If he's doing well early, maybe that makes it a little bit more likely that they keep rolling with him. So I'm inclined to go there despite the lack of looks recently.
After all the kind of devil's advocate I'm playing, I still don't disagree with you. I don't think it's like a lock that Alvin. I don't look at 6,800 and go, man, he's way underpriced. I like him. And I will definitely have some Alvin Kamara. The fact that Ingram is out, and my fault, I forgot that he got hurt because I remember he returned for 2 weeks, but then he got hurt last week last week, right? Against Tampa. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, it was Tampa.
So in the 2 games that Ingram missed, Kamara played 88 and 79% of snaps. That's good. So now you just have to hope that it's a positive game script, and it's not a positive game script against like a good Tampa defense. It's against Atlanta. I get it. I do. I think that's viable. I'd rather play him than Pollard, I think, because there won't be a ton of competition back there. But the low end is interesting to me too. And before we get to that, want to shout out everybody in chat right now because the likes to viewer ratio is solid. We're almost at 33%.
Wow,
that's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
That's pretty good. So appreciate you guys who took a second to hit that old thumbs up button down there. The Isaiah Pacheco is interesting. Spot like 5,900 against Houston. 22 carries in that last game where they went up against an inferior opponent. They were 16-point favorites at home against the Rams. I don't think Najee Harris is insane, although I don't feel great about it. D'Onta Foreman, a true decimal back, but I have to add him every time because he sits at 5,400. This team doesn't want to throw the football. If they don't have to throw the football, they won't. It's going to be a cold day there. It's going to be like 31 degrees in Carolina. Darnold in the 2 games that he started, 19 and 24 attempts. Like this is one of these teams. D'Onta Foreman wasn't good last week. Okay. But he still rushed 21 times, 24 times the game before that. Baltimore was a weird one, but 31 times against Atlanta. There's 20 plus rush upside for him. I don't love him at all, but if he's super low owned, I'm fine with it. Zonovan Knight against Detroit, 5,300. I think Michael Carter steals some of that pass catching responsibility, and we saw that last week, but he's still the clear first and second down back, was targeted 3 times. And then you get into your like Jerick McKinnon's against Houston. That's why it becomes difficult between Pacheco and McKinnon. And then Rex Burkhead, if Pierce is out, but the problem is there. It's like Dario Gumbawali, Eno Benjamin. I don't know who it's going to be, but I can say that Rex Burkhead got the 2 goal line carries after Pierce went down. He failed on them, ended up losing a yard on 2 carries, but he was the guy in there on the final drive. So that's what I'm seeing down below 6K. What are you looking at?
So I'll start by saying I believe Eno Benjamin was cut by the Texans. So that's
did they scrap him okay?
I think they cut him. Maybe Eno was waived. Marco Semparo says
okay, so Eno's gone. It's Dario Gumbawale and Rex Burkhead.
Yep. So gotta love Rex Burkhead there. It's hard to have a lot of confidence in either of those back, but certainly somebody's got to get the looks against a bad Chiefs defense. So maybe Rex Burkhead, he's historically been a pretty good pass catching back. Most likely the Texans are going to be playing from behind. There is a 14-point spread in that game. So that's a little bit interesting. You can consider playing one of those guys, but I'll start with the Chiefs. I think Yeah, I have some interest in Isaiah Pacheco. They've been saying that he is a capable pass catcher. We're going to get him more involved in the passing game. And finally, the past 2 games he has had, the most recent game, he had 3 targets, which is the most he's had in a game the entire year. 3 targets for Isaiah Pacheco, caught all 3 of them for 23 yards. The game before that, he had a couple targets as well. So they seem to be, gradually getting him a little bit more involved in the pass game. Of course, these numbers it's a very small sample size. Could be a little bit of a fluke, but they've been saying they want to get him more involved in the passing game. 5 targets over the past couple games is at least a little bit of an uptick, kind of, gradually increasing that floor and ceiling for Isaiah Pacheco there. He has also seen, 27 rushes over the past 2 games, 22 in the game before that. So fairly involved in the running game as well. And, it's a great matchup against the Texans. They're 27th against the rush. Again, we've got a 14-point spread. Most likely the Chiefs are going to be playing from ahead in the second half, probably more inclined to run the clock out at that point with Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon. Yeah, Jerick McKinnon, man, what a game that last time out. Maybe he earned some more looks. I don't know. I think that he's probably still going to have a similar role, which, he's been getting a pretty good share of the snaps there. He's 5,200. Kind of interesting. We actually have him a little bit over owned. 6.7% projected ownership, 4.1% chance of being optimal. There might be some box score chasers there, so I'm a little bit more inclined to go to Pacheco than McKinnon, but McKinnon certainly playable as well. You named so many guys there that I'm like, how am I going to get to? I know you brought up Zonovan.
Well, you don't have to bring
Knight.
them all up. You just tell me the ones you like.
Yeah, Zonovan Knight. I definitely have some interest in Zonovan Knight. We talked about that game, the Jets against the Lions. Hard not to have some interest in Zonovan Knight. I'm just looking at the boom bust duel. Hard not to have a little bit of interest in Latavius Murray. 10% projected ownership, 18.5% chance to be an optimal. That jumps off the page at me. He's not a sexy name, not a back that I'm generally inclined to go to, but against this Cardinals defense, I think Latavius Murray is somebody that we have to at least consider. If he's optimal 18.5% of the time in our sims, that's a pretty interesting play.
The old Denver Broncos, huh?
The old Denver Broncos. They're crushing it now. I mean, Russell Wilson was just God mode last week, threw 3 touchdowns himself and then got it down to the goal line where he was then concussed and they had to bring in Brett Ripien to throw the 4th. So that was a bummer. Didn't get our full Russell Wilson, the great game that we were hoping for after we talked about him all week, but still had, a serviceable game.
Yeah, I was not on. I'm not taking credit for any good Russell Wilson game. If you were, I would give you credit for that. I will also tell you I'm not going back to Russell Wilson if he plays, but yeah. But it is against Arizona, so I think there will be some people that do so.
Yeah, I mean, if he plays is a big question mark. I think at this point after the concussion, I assume he is in concussion protocol currently. I guess I have not looked for updates there, but I've been assuming that he's yeah. So, but if he plays against that Cardinals defense, it all comes down to ownership and how much we're expecting people to be box score chasing. What do we have his projected ownership? We've got 4.5% projected ownership. 5.5% chance to be in the top value stack. So maybe some merit there, but that's beside the point. Yeah, it's not my favorite spot either.
Yeah, and I don't even know if you could enjoy a big Russell Wilson game for anyone that was playing him every week all season because you've just got nothing left. But who knows? I mean, I tend to think that like 12 games or whatever it is he played prior to that is 12 or 13 games. But 12. You tend to think that like that says more about them than the 13th game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Take the larger sample size.
We'll see. I don't know, man, but I think we got to go to wide receiver and really dig in here because there's a few guys that being questionable right now makes a big difference. T. Higgins questionable, but you also have Tyler Boyd questionable for the same team. You got Hayden Hurst questionable for Cincinnati. That makes matters very interesting here. Like, does Kadarius Toney return to action? Does Cortland Sutton come back? A few interesting spots, of course, less on Sutton, but I actually want to start with Cincinnati at the wide receiver position in a minute too. I'll tell you guys, especially if you're new to the channel, how to get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum and up to $1,000 risk-free bet in the event that Prize Picks isn't available to you. But do you think that if Higgins and Boyd sit, that you're going to go to a lot of Jamar Chase here as the second highest priced player on the slate? And what if they play?
Yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase obviously is going to be in play regardless. He's an alpha receiver. He's a guy that can put up a big score on a single play. So I think Jamar Chase is always going to be playable. What do we have we've got him projected for, hang on, let me sort differently here. I was starting to look at Trenton Irwin is where I thought we were going for some reason. Okay. 15.8% projected ownership on Jamar Chase, 10.9% chance of being optimal. Yeah. I mean, I do have some interest there. It's a negative leverage play. He's not my favorite wide receiver on the board. Not the best matchup on the slate for the Bengals going up against the Bucks. So mild interest in Jamar Chase, but I think that we get, somewhat of an ownership discount because they're going up against the Bucks. So I think that's why we're not getting crazy ownership on Jamar Chase. And Jamar Chase is the kind of wide receiver who can do it against any defense. So yeah, I have some interest. He's not my favorite player on the slate, but 150 said he's certainly somebody that you're going to want in your player pool because he does have the upside to break the slate even against a defense like the Bucks. The question for me is if Jamar Chase is out, if T Higgins is out, are we going to Trenton Irwin, who played 84% of snaps in the last game? Is that something we have to consider? Trent Taylor played 78% of snaps with both Tyler Boyd and T Higgins out. It would probably require both of them to be out for me to really consider these guys. But if we get both of those guys out, maybe you have to at least think of these guys as value plays, the Trenton Irwin or Trent Taylor. I'd probably go to Irwin first of those two. But that's, not the best plays on, so we don't need to go in depth on those guys, but maybe they'll be in play if the receivers ahead of them are out. But yeah, Jamar Chase definitely have some interest there.
Yeah, that makes it so tough because my God, like Trenton Irwin, Trent Taylor is another one that it's very uninspiring to have. Like we already know Tyler Boyd's a pretty good slot receiver and he's as hit or miss as it comes. Generally speaking, he's a miss. And then once in a while he breaks up. So you're getting a lesser talented slot guy coming in to take his spot. And then we also had Mitchell Wilcox last week who played 79% of snaps, but none of these guys are really all that involved. So I would just say it is because it looks like Hayden Hurst is going to be out again. He's week to week. So Not even day to day. Sounds like he's already out. Higgins played one snap. Boyd played one more snap than Higgins. This is just a situation to closely monitor because Jamar Chase had 15 targets. We saw like Tyler or Joe Burrow said, all right, you know what? I'm just going to throw to one of the best receivers in the league. And whilst Tampa Bay is still a good defense, their secondary has been banged up. They've had last week we saw them get run over, steamrolled by Brock Purdy. I think if that's the case, then Jamar Chase becomes one of the best plays on the slate, given volume alone. Volume alone, he's already a monster. He can beat any coverage. Like, love Jamar Chase. I have some AJ Brown. I don't think I'm going to have much Amon-Ra St. Brown this week. I know you can move him around anywhere, and it's not like he's going to be, locking horns with Sauce Gardner all game long, which is encouraging. But at the same time, this is a Jets defense that's allowing 44 yards per game to wide receiver ones. I have a little bit of a concern about Amon-Ra St. Brown just getting at this price point now where you're going, yeah, he's pretty damn expensive.
Yeah. So let me start with a point about Jamar Chase. We talk about him being such a smash if T Higgins is out. Well, maybe even if T Higgins is not named on the inactives, maybe it's still worth going there because now we have 2 games this year where T Higgins has been active and then just doesn't play. Like they don't tell us that he's injured, that we shouldn't expect to play him, and then he just doesn't play in the game. So maybe that even makes Jamar Chase a little bit more interested if everybody's going to stop playing him because T Higgins is active. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'm with you. 19.7% protected ownership, 10.2% chance of being optimal. This Jets defense is for real. It's not. I'm not going to force myself to play some Detroit players. I think that even if I do go to like a Mike White stack, I might not force the run back with Detroit just because the Jets have such a great defense and because of Amon-Ra's price tag being 7,800. makes it a little bit more difficult for him to get there. So like, you can go to a jet stack. You don't necessarily need to include Detroit, because even if Ramon-Ra puts up, 6 for 60 and a touchdown, which would be a very good game, that's not a have to have it game at 7,800.
Right.
So like you can do those jet stacks without Amon-Ra. He looks pretty over-owned here. Man, Cortland Sutton, I'm surprised to see how good Cortland Sutton looks in the tools. 5.1% projected ownership, 12.2% chance of being optimal. I think you're going to go to, I mean, you brought him up a little bit earlier. How much interest, if any, do you think you really have in Cortland Sutton? It is a great matchup, obviously, against the Cardinals, but the Broncos still just have a 19.75 implied team total. And does the quarterback affect your interest in Cortland Sutton?
I mean, I guess Brett Rippon isn't, I don't know how much worse he can be than Russ all season long.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking at last week, and Russell Wilson threw 3 touchdowns. That's his first 3 touchdown game of the season, and probably like his third multi-touchdown game of the year. It's been bad.
Yeah.
I would rather go to so Garrett Wilson's 6K. I know that's a little bit more expensive, but I'd rather Mike Williams is 6,300 against Tennessee. Devonta Smith is 6,400 against Chicago. We didn't mention CeeDee Lamb. We don't have to get into that. You already mentioned him earlier. CeeDee Lamb's a great play at 7,300. Keenan Allen, 6,800. I don't know. There's just other players that I'd rather play. Maybe spend up a little bit or pay down further and go with like an Elijah Moore or Zay Jones at 4,900 and what could be a shootout between the Cowboys and the Jags. Do I hate it at 5,200? No, I don't hate it, but I'm not enamored with him at all. I've lost plenty of money playing Cortland Sutton this season. And unless we assume that Russell Wilson really figured things out before he was, mercifully put to sleep near the goal line, you'd rather Russ have a concussion where he forgets the whole game, any other game than the one where he's actually playing well too. It seems, it seems really unfair.
That is unfair.
I
feel a little bit bad for us. I think I'm
maybe
with you though.
Chris Moore too, though, at 4,200 if Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks are out.
Yeah, I think the latest is they were both practicing today. So that's maybe a bad sign for Chris Moore. I think that both guys at least practiced today. So maybe it's more likely that we get at least one of Collins or Cooks in today. I could be wrong. I think that's what I saw before the show. But yeah, if they're out, then Chris Moore is going to be interesting. I think I'm with you on Cortland Sutton. It's hard for me to have as much enthusiasm as I usually have for players that look this great in the boom bust tool. Maybe I'd try to get closer to the field, maybe a little bit above it, but I don't think I'm going to go, sometimes if I see 5% ownership, 12% chance of being optimal, I'm going to play 25% of that player. I don't see myself doing that with Cortland Sutton. If I play, maybe I'll play a little bit above the field, but not taking any kind of major stand there. Garrett Wilson, I mean, you brought him up. He's 6,000, pretty clearly a great play against Detroit. I'm actually surprised just looking at the top of our optimal odds. Typically we have players that are, 30% is typically like the highest optimal odds. The highest of anybody of wide receivers on the slate is 17% for Garrett Wilson. So we have just really spread out exposure in terms of chances of being optimal among these wide receivers. We've got a lot of good plays, no really great plays on this slate. But Garrett Wilson is the top of the heap there, 17% chance of being optimal at 15% projected ownership. I think that he looks like a great play. It would not surprise me to see that ownership come up quite a bit from 15%, because I think everybody's been watching the game logs, seeing how well Garrett Wilson's been doing without Zach Wilson, and at now 6,000 against Detroit. I think people are going to want to go there. But he's going to project really well. He's going to look great in that spot. Juju, maybe this is why Patrick Mahomes looks so good in the top stacks tool. 6.3% projected ownership, 12.6% chance of being optimal. So I guess that answers the question of who we want to go from Kansas City outside of Kelsey.
Yeah, I mean, look, Juju, he has a 12 target game and an 11 target game that are bookending a 4, 3, and 4 target game. So we just have to hope we get one of the double digit games and not the 3.
Yep, exactly. And maybe it's less likely against really a team that they should be crushing. Yeah, I mean, they should be crushing the Texans, but I don't know. I mean, our tools love him, and if he does get the targets against this Texans defense, you can bank on him putting up some fantasy points.
Like the Chiefs are a better team than the Cowboys. I don't anticipate back-to-back weeks where the Houston Texans are threatening or are up with
Right.
2 minutes to go. I
Yeah.
have to, plus with Kadarius Toney expected to return, that's another variable that we have to account
True.
for, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Kadarius Toney, man, I've been expecting since he got to the Chiefs, I've been thinking he's going to be that guy at some point. It's going to be Juju, Kadarius Toney, and Travis Kelce are the primary pass catching options there, and he just hasn't been able to get on the field. At some point, though, he's somebody that I'm really interested for, going forward.
All right, let's close this one out at tight end. And like I said, if you guys can't get on Prize Picks for any reason, usually like it's not in your state, probably means you're in a legal betting state. Also means that BetMGM is available to you, which means that, well, you're kind of in luck because we have the link in the description. You have to use these or we can't find out who you are. Or the one, Mike, throw one in the chat too, please. 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum. All the tools we talked about earlier, $240 value, 120 plus 120 equals 240 plus the premium Discord, all of our tools, data, lineup generator, and up to $1,000 risk-free bet over at MGM. You don't have to put don't let that be intimidating to you. Like you only have to put $10 in. Hell, if you lose that $10 bet, you still get the $10 back in a free bet. If you go, all right, I got $100 to throw in this. I'm already getting the 2 months of Stokastic plus Platinum. If you lose that bet, say you put it all $100 bet and you lose it, you get that back in free bets too. So, I mean, legitimately best of both worlds, as good as it gets. All of our tools, plus up to $1,000 first match deposit bonus. Take advantage of it, my friends. This won't be here forever. And we'd love to have you join the community as well. All right. Wrap it up with tight ends. Quickest question up at the top. What are you doing with Travis Kelce?
Yeah, I mean, Travis Kelce looks phenomenal in the boom bust tool. 15% projected ownership, 25% chance of being optimal. That is a crazy high optimal rate for a guy who's 7,800. As you said, he's 3,000 more expensive than the next best tight end. But just looking like sorting by salary, we don't have a lot of high end options at tight end. We don't have TJ Hawkinson on this slate. We don't have Mark Andrews on this slate. All the guys who usually come, next in line, they're not on this slate. So it makes sense that Travis Kelce, as the one guy who has, potential to put up 25, 30 fantasy points, he's going to be optimal a lot more than everybody else. Pretty interesting to see that Taysom Hill is the next most expensive tight end. I guess this is he's been listed as a tight end in our boom bust tool. I don't think he is necessarily a tight end on DraftKings there, so maybe we can skip over that. But yeah, Travis Kelce, a lot of interest there. Dalton Schultz, he's 4,400. Talked about how much I like those Cowboys stacks. It's a great spot for the Cowboys. 8.1% projected ownership on Schultz with a 12.7% chance of being optimal. Like him quite a bit. Gerald Everett, we talked about how much we like Justin Herbert. 7.9% projected ownership on Gerald Everett. 8.5% chance of being optimal. I have some interest there. Cole Kmet, I mean, I talked about how I have a lot of interest in Justin Fields. I am inclined to stack him generally with one pass catcher. Cole Kmet's 4,000. We've got a little bit of positive leverage, 3.3% projected ownership, 3.8% chance of being optimal. So I have some interest there as well.
I might live in the 3K range this week. Dulcich, like that's one Bronco I don't mind going to it at a position where it's usually, I mean, you're not going to get Evan Ingram games every single week. Tyler Conklin is interesting to me. He hasn't been productive, but he's at least getting targets. And in a spot like this, I am intrigued. Even though it's an improved Detroit defense, they still they can still cough up a lot of passing yards. So Conklin, especially if you're playing Mike White, he stands out. Chigo Okonkwo, I will say though, and we got there was a nice game from Okonkwo. He scored on that 10-yard reception. He had a 2-point conversion as well. But Austin Hooper did still run more routes and played a few more snaps than he did, right? And actually had better receiving production. So don't assume that Hooper's just going anywhere. Okonkwo's price came up. Treylon Burks might be back. So I definitely don't like him as much as last week. But all those guys are interesting. If Dallas Goedert returns, I have interest in Goddard if he's not limited against Chicago. Did you talk about Ingram?
I did not talk about Ingram.
That's the last guy. We'll close on this. Coming off the best game of his career after he was left for even Ben Rasa was on one of those memes that you see on Twitter in front of the headstone with like Evan Ingram this year to this year, and he's giving the thumbs up. And then they exhumed his body, they revived him, and he had a massive game. So what are you doing with
somebody
Ingram
a milli in best ball? Yeah, the season long best ball millie winner on Underdog, where you get the $1 million top prize for first, and second place gets zero. That guy benefited one because Evan Ingram went completely off. He came down from behind 12 points. Then Evan Ingram absolutely smashed. Maybe not because of Evan Ingram. I think that he also had his team did great in general, but very helpful to get that huge game from Ingram. Yeah, hard not to have some interest in Ingram here. I got to say, I think that you actually affected ownership on Okonkwo last week with all you talked about him throughout the week, and people were paid off. I mean, unless they faded Evan Ingram, I guess maybe it hurt in that sense. But
it's Okonkwo, like if you didn't have Ingram, you weren't winning tournaments.
Yeah, exactly.
But it also did, like if you had Okonkwo, it still wasn't hurting you. Like you were, you were in a good spot. That's how I look at it.
And if you had both of them, then you were golden.
Well, then yeah. But I can't. Did a lot of lineups have Chig Okonkwo?
Probably not. There are probably very few in
that'd be crazy
or any contest. But yeah, it was a great call. He did great. I think that you put people on him. You started talking about him when he was projected for like 2 or 3% ownership Okonkwo, and then he came in at 20% in the millie. So I don't know if you affected ownership there. With
big time.
I'll add this. So just because you brought up Tyler Conklin, great leverage against Garrett Wilson. We didn't mention Elijah Moore. I think is also a great leverage spot on. Tons of people are going to be going to Garrett Wilson. I think Conklin pretty interesting here, and Elijah Moore interesting as well for some leverage. But yeah, I know you got to get out of here. I feel like we've talked about all of the most relevant tight ends.
So here's what we do to close out any show. And no, John, no ownership show this week just because we have Saturday and Sunday. But all of our ownership, if you wanted to get 3 free days of Stokastic NFL content, the link is down there. You guys know that. Or like I said, you want to get a month or 2 months free, go to Prize Picks, use the link, go to BetMGM, use the link. In the event that you're looking for ownership projections in the top stack and the boom bust tool, you're covered for a long ways if you take advantage of that. But no, only because we have the Saturday games. We have to find a way to make this work. And we can't be doing shows that we'll do Saturday first and then Sunday we'll be here forever. It's weird. It's clunky. So we figured the best way to do it was, for those of you guys that weren't here yesterday, Saturday first look was yesterday. Sunday first look is today. Tomorrow, Matt Savoca and I will do, I think we're just going to do Saturday and Sunday since that's the matchups. And then Friday, Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, and I are doing a strategy show for Saturday. Got Deeper Dive Live before lock on Saturday, and then Sunday, you got everything as normal. So that's where we're at. One thing we do here, Ben and I do to close out the show every first look is one defense under 3K, Neil. Ooh. You can go first since this is your first time wrapping up a first look show with me.
I literally have not talked about defense at all this year because on the Saturday strategy show, Greg makes a joke of it, how we never have time to talk about defenses. So didn't even pull them up, but let me look.
We spend 30 seconds on it. I can give you 5 of them right now. I think 4, no, 3. I can give you 3 sub 3K. I'll give you one first, and then you can give me one while you look. For me, it's going to be the Chargers against the Titans. Chargers at home. Titans, the wheels are falling off that Titans team. And the Chargers, even without Derwin James last week, put the clamps on probably an overrated Miami offense, but still put the clamps on them nonetheless.
Yeah, that's a good call there. Ooh, I was inclined to go to Detroit, but the Jets, but they're 3,200, so can't go there. I have some interest in, who was it I was just looking at? Oh, the Bucks. I mean, against Joe Burrow.
Yep, I have them in there too.
Yeah, it's obviously it's a tough spot against the Bengals. Offense is pretty great, but Joe Burrow also a little bit turnover prone. We've got the Bucks coming in at 6% projected ownership, 11% chance to be an optimal. I think that's a spot that I'm going to have some interest in. Yeah, I'll throw out. I'll say the Bucks.
All right, one. And I think Patriots, just given how unpredictable that Vegas team is, how many mistakes they can make. I'm not going to sleep on the Patriots either. Anyway, appreciate you guys. Neil's on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. You can follow me at Laffy_D. Check out all Neil's work, all his showdown stuff, everything he's doing both on the website and here on the channel. And my picks for every game, best bets for every game will be up tonight. It's going to take a while. I'm going to start right now. It'll be up on the Odd Shopper channel. Thursday Night Football came up yesterday, but we'd love to have you guys support that one as well. I'm at Laffy_D on Twitter, LOUGHY_D. Hey, you guys are the best. As always, hit that thumbs up before you go. Shout out to Mike Lawrence for producing this one, and we'll catch you back here tomorrow. Marathon Matchup Show. Bring your supplies. Peace.